The Malta Eurovision Song Contest returns after 4 years. PN MP Chris Side and Nadur Mayor report their own brother's illegal dumping, and over €7,000 raised to repatriate Ajay's body to Nepal. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo. Johnathan Cilia here, joined by Tim Diacono. It is a Friday, so I do hope you've got some great plans for the weekend. We've got a very special guest in the building today, PN candidate Eve Borg Bonello, so definitely stay tuned for that later on in the episode. But before that, let's jump into the top story, what everyone's talking about, the Malta Eurovision Song Contest that aired last night, at least the first part of it. So the last time this contest aired was in 2018, when Shrestha actually won the contest and was sent on to represent the island at the Eurovision Song Contest. Obviously, if you are living under a rock, you might not be aware that the Eurovision Song Contest is right around the corner. It will be held in Italy, in Turin this year. Last night, 22 contestants, are attempting to represent the island. They took the stage, and social media, at least my feed, was full of hot takes and thoughts. People were talking about the outfits as well as some outfit mishaps. People were talking about the performances, the actual staging, the dancing, and of course the singing itself. Now it seems that after last night's performances, a number of names, kind of are the favorites. We've got Emma Muscat, a very, very popular singer. She's made a name for herself in Italy, but we also have Aiden, who's really made a name for himself over the last year in Malta. Denise, Nicola Zappardi as well, got a lot of praise for their performances. But there was also a lot of feedback as far as the criticism. A lot of people reacted to the criticism of the show, saying, guys, why do we have to be so critical of everything? Why do we have to be so brutal and tear down so many singers? However, other people did say, listen, without this criticism, we're never going to get to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my favorite Eurovision Song Contest ever. I've seen better performances, some good songs, but many of them were immediately forgettable. That's the way of it. In sadder news, Chris Cicluna became the first ever Maltese Eurovision singer to die. He was one half of the Chris and Moira group, which represented Malta back in 1994, and he passed away over the past 24 hours. And we offer our condolences to the family. Tonight on TVM, there's going to be a special Eurovision show with former guests, with former singers singing, and I'm sure there will be some kind of tribute to Chris over there. And at the end of the show, the finalists will be chosen, and then they will compete again in the grand final tomorrow evening. So let us know in the comments below who you think should represent Malta at this year's Eurovision Song Contest. Moving on, Peter Paul's Side, the brother of Nationalist MP Chris Side and Nadur Mayor Edward Side, has been confirmed as the person behind illegal dumping in the Gozo town. Now, a video of this dumping was posted by independent candidate Arnold Cassola, and Lovin Malta looked into it. We found out that the person behind it was Peter Paul's Side. We spoke to him. He said that that this happened in his olive tree field. We asked him for the permit and that is going to be building rubble walls. We asked him for the permit, and he said he doesn't have a permit yet. We spoke to the mayor, his brother, who condemned it, said they actually filed a report themselves. And we spoke to Chris Side, the Nationalist MP, who said steps should be taken against anyone who breaks the law, regardless of who he is.
This is a really interesting story. Like we said, our journalist Sasha Vella, as well as editor Julian Bonici, were able to identify who was dumping in Nadur. The company is Side Brothers, and it's interesting, PNMP Chris Side is one of the brothers. Apparently they are 4 brothers, one of them's the Nadur mayor as well. It is good to see that when we reached out to Chris Side as well as the mayor Edward Side, they were very clear. They said, listen, if someone's broken the law, if someone's being abusive, they need to be, they have to suffer at the full extent of the law. So that's really, really good to see. And like Tim said, we did reach out to Peter Paul's Side, the alleged trucker in question, who said that he has a permit. However, when we checked online, we could not find a permit. So definitely stay tuned to see what the next development is in this story. Moving on to the next story, a very positive story actually, and a very tragic state of affairs. So 7,000 euros have been raised within 3-4 hours today to repatriate the body of Ajay Shrestha back to Nepal. So obviously, Ajay had unfortunately died earlier this week in the Marsa accident after a truck full of metal debris had fallen over. I think all of Malta was shocked by it. You had, all types of politicians, all types of business leaders and community leaders reacting to that. People were wondering, what can we do to help the family? What can we do to help repatriate the body back to Nepal so he gets a proper burial? And this is now the answer. 7,000 euros was raised within hours. So we had actually spoken to people who are organizing the return of the body, and they had said this is going to cost us between 5,000 to 7,000, which is not a cheap amount at all. And the fact that they raised it within hours just goes to show kind of the heart of the community in Malta, as well as Maltese people, as well as foreign people living in Malta, how ready they were to contribute in this tragedy.
Yes, very, very good news out of a tragedy. However, there were some people who were saying, and I think it's a fair point, that the person who was actually responsible for killing Shrestha, even if obviously not intentionally, should be forking out at least part of the money to repatriate his body home. I think it's a very fair argument. Moving on, heritage officers from the Superintendents of Cultural Heritage have investigated the Gozo home of Agriculture Minister Anton Refalo following bizarre revelations that a 19th century Victoria Regina stone marker is being kept in his home. So images sent to Lovin Malta these images were sent to Lovin Malta, originally published by his son, by Anton Refalo's son, of his garden on social media, and it shows the stone marker with VR initials, and a closer look at them shows that this might well be a protected artifact, a protected national heritage, which leads to the question, what on earth is it doing in the minister's garden? More questions are asked when you realize that this minister was previously chairman of Heritage Malta, which is the government authority in charge of overseeing and protecting our natural heritage. He has yet to answer any questions about it. He hasn't issued a statement, he hasn't been responding.
He's cooperating with police, right?
Yeah, I mean, he is cooperating with police, but it's potentially like a very serious crime.
Absolutely.
In fact, the law states that people found guilty of appropriating items of cultural and historical value could face a fine of up to 116,000 euro and up to 6 years in jail.
Unless they're a minister, maybe. No, this is a really crazy story to me. If it's true, I will definitely wait to see kind of what the authorities have to say about this, but absolutely. If we've got a minister in the sister island of Gozo with protected 19th century cultural artifacts from the British era, just as an ornament near his pool to, enjoy as he invites people over for a drink or a barbecue over the summer, that is absolutely unacceptable. Might even be grounds for resignation, in my opinion. So I'm definitely interested to see kind of what happens here. If there's a reason that he has this marker there, if it's something else, I definitely do wait to see what Refalo has to say about this, and definitely Lovin Malta will be reporting on this story. And moving on to the final story today, a bit of an update of the Malta Marathon. There was a lot of controversy over what's happening. Is the race happening? Well, it seems like the race will be going ahead on the 6th of March, after organizers of the Malta Marathon joined forces with Sport Malta today to deliver the year's race, following the route that was proposed by the government. So there was lots of questions about which route would be followed. Now the government route has been accepted. In a post online, Mark Kotayar announced that the Malta Marathon Organizing Committee, Representative Joseph McAuliffe, and running activist Darren Vandit will be part of this organizing panel for the new race, that they're working together, which means that they are now working hand in hand with Transport Malta, and the race will go ahead. So if you are a runner who's kind of hoping to partake in this race, you can now probably sign up in the coming days. The race will be taking place on 6th March.
Yeah, of course, there's been a lot of criticism about this development, the fact that the government has decided to take over the logistics and the organization of this race. The argument being, in a nutshell, that the role of government should be to facilitate the private sector and NGOs organize events, and not jump in instead and become the hero and organize their own events. Obviously, there's a lot of debate about this, many different opinions, but the fact that the government has brought the original organizer on board shows that at least it is conscious of this criticism. However, the race is still being organized by the government, so we'll wait and see. However, this race has not been held, it has to be said, for the past 2 years. It's been very unfortunate. The last one had to be cancelled because of COVID, and the year before had to be cancelled because of bad weather. And I think Malta does deserve to have the marathon return. That's it from us today. We're obviously going to be interviewing Eve Borg Bonello, a new PN candidate, right after this clip of when we had interviewed her a few months ago. Stay tuned.
Ignoranta.
Kieku taf kemm inkera.
We're brainless chickens, a lot of them.
What a pathetic syndrome you are.
I don't trust girls who wear leopard print. Is her underwear also leopard print? It bodes badly.
Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now is Eve Borg Bonello, new candidate representing the Nationalist Party. Hi Eve, thank you for accepting our invitation for an interview.
Thank you so much for inviting me, I really appreciate it.
So you're the youngest candidate in Maltese history to represent a major political party at a general election. Will you also be the youngest MP in Europe or even the world currently if you get elected?
Well, that's not entirely up to me. Going into this, I am just very much hoping to learn from the experience, to speak and get close to as many people as I can within my community, and hopefully spread the message and fight for what's right. Even if this could serve as experience, even potentially for a local council election, I'd be happy. And whether or not this dream becomes a reality, whether or not I go from the youngest candidate to the youngest MP, depends on the faith people showed me through their votes, and I just hope for the best and hope to learn.
Have you looked at these statistics as to whether, if you do get elected, you will be the youngest MP in Europe or the world?
As far as I know, that's the case.
Wow. Okay.
So fingers crossed there.
So there is actually a good chance that you'll get elected via the new gender quota mechanism that's coming into play in this election. Would you mind getting elected in this way?
When we speak about the gender quota, I have some things that are, I think, are worth praising and some reservations. Do I think women should get elected just because they are women? No. Do I think women in our country deserve to be represented by people who could understand the most? Yes. Do I think the gender quota mechanism is solving the issue? No. I believe it is a small bandage on a bleeding wound. Now it's a bleeding wound. If we really, really want to fix the problem regarding female representation in our highest institutions like Parliament, we have to look at the institution itself. We have to look at the fact that it's part-time. It's a part-time gig. It's another job after our first job in the morning, and there aren't family-friendly measures, there isn't childcare, and also there are huge issues with Parliament in the way it is. I believe, personally, Parliament should be full-time. For the reasons I've already mentioned, and also for reasons that recently the former Prime Minister Lawrence Gonzi had made, that it affects our entire democracy. If we look at current Parliament, the government MPs are either given ministries or huge consultancies, which doubles the resources, and by design leaves a weaker opposition. So I truly believe if we want to fix this issue, we have to fix Parliament. We have to make it full-time. And in terms of the quota bill, something I do appreciate is the fact that there is a 20-year sunset clause, which means the law would stop working in effect after 20 years.
When you'll be 38 years old.
And hopefully by then, culturally, we wouldn't still have this problem. We'd be more comfortable electing women and would be more comfortable with the idea of women in these high positions. And hopefully by then, we would solve this Parliament issue, would make it full-time, because I believe that's the true way to fix it. Today, it's already very unfortunate that the stereotype is that women have to pick between family and a career. The way it is right now is even worse. Women, if they want to become politicians, have to choose between family and 2 careers.
Yeah.
So I really believe that something has to be done in that regard.
So one of your first campaign photos was of you praying in church. Are you a religious person, and how important is God to your life?
Well, first of all, just for context, I wanted to explain the way I use social media. I depend a lot on social media since I don't have as many resources as many other candidates do. I treat social media as a digital diary of what I do in a day and the campaign train. That was a Sunday, a very hectic Sunday at that, loads of events and responsibilities that I decided to end with Mass. The relationship I have with religion, I enjoy reflecting on it. I was raised Catholic. My parents are quite religious. I went to a church school for primary, secondary, and even sixth form. When I was younger, I found myself rebelling against religion, just out of the rebel without a cause phase, rebelling against any form of authority. However, there was a turning point for me, and that turning point for me was when we had the protests fighting for the rights and the lives of immigrants that were being held illegally at sea in Captain Morgan boats. Over there, the first people to give us support and much more importantly speak up for these people, these very vulnerable people, were the church, the Catholic Church and the Jesuits. And to me that was a turning point, because yes, the church is a fallible institution made out of people, but there are good people that practice what they preach.
But does that make you believe in what, that makes you kind of like the person, but does that make you believe what they're actually preaching?
Yes. I believe I look to faith in a lot of things I do in my life. I try my best to go to church every week. To me, it's a lot of things to me. It's almost a moral check on myself to make sure I stay on the right road. It's a pocket of peace where I get to reflect. Some people do it through other ways, but I feel very comfortable doing it through going to Mass. And I feel it just helps me reflect and look at entire situations and try to stay on the right road. In fact, the explanation of the Gospel last Sunday reflected about people who are struggling with the cost of living and how those who practice faith cannot combine it to the four words of a church, and how we actually have to practice our faith by helping as many people as possible. And that's something I hope to do. That's one of the main reasons I started to become active within politics and our society, because I just want to help people.
Interesting. So you were on the Nationalist Party's internal cannabis committee that was discussing what stance the PN should take vis-a-vis this new cannabis legalization bill. Obviously we all know how it turned out, and the PN ended up opposing it. However, you personally took a stance in favour of cannabis legalization. Have you ever tried cannabis yourself?
I have experimented at a point. When we look at cannabis, something that...
Sorry, at a point, what do you mean that you've...
I have experimented, yes, before, but...
once, or how many? How often?
Once or twice, no more than that for sure.
Okay.
Curiosity killed the cat. But when we talk about marijuana, the PN has always been in favour of further decriminalisation. In 2015, it was PN that voted in favour of amendments to the criminal code to further decriminalise marijuana. The problem was that people don't get sent to prison for smoking marijuana, they get sent to prison for trafficking. Now, whether those laws are way too extreme or not is another
it's not about being getting sent to prison, it's about the police going after them.
Yes, of course, so and this is what I was getting to.
If the police had caught you experimenting, they'd have taken you in for 48 hours and perhaps hold you to a tribunal.
They would have taken me into custody or for further questioning if I was caught trafficking, and those are the laws that might be a bit extreme that we have to look at. Now, personally, I have no problem with weed being further decriminalised and legalised. I just think we should be very careful when we speak about people and when we think about people who might be at risk of abusing of it. That's why I believe laws have to be much more holistic, and that's why I felt like there was a lot to be desired in the current bill the way it was proposed.
So former Prime Minister Joseph Muscat said in an interview with Lovin Malta recently that Malta should legalise magic mushrooms next. Do you agree?
So first of all, Joseph Muscat is no longer official in politics, and I really hope it stays that way. In terms of magic mushrooms and further psychotics, I don't really feel like there is enough studies. As far as I know, there were only 2 peer-reviewed studies, and they didn't even really go into the potential negative effects. So when we're taking a decision on a national level, I feel it's basic responsibility to wait to know more facts and not just have knee-jerk reactions for spicy headlines.
So let's wait and see, and
base it on science.
And base it on science. And finally, you're obviously entering the big arena of politics, known to be quite cutthroat, quite ruthless. why were you entering this instead of, for example, like focusing on your university life or traveling the world?
I don't think it was now that I entered politics. I've been...
The big arena of politics.
Of course, but I've been active in politics since I was 14. Whether it was the environmental movement, the anti-corruption movement for human rights, and so on and so forth. And it was through my activism that I realized it always circled back to the people taking decisions in those green seats of parliament. So I felt the way to be most effective is within an institution like that. As I said, I am just looking forward to learning along this campaign trail, but it always ends up in those corridors of power, and I feel that people like me, young people, and people who share the same beliefs and hopes get to be represented there.
Eve Borg Bonello, thank you very much. Thank you very much for staying with us on Lovin Daily.
Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. Stay tuned on, follow lovinwars.com for all the latest developments, and have an evening full of loving.